And welcome back to Pokemon Team Creation Series. This one comes to us from JRC, who asked the question, what is the Pokemon team of Miles Morales? So, I've done normal Spider-Man, Peter Parker, might as well do Miles now. And I like Miles. I love these movies. The newest one so far is my favorite movie. As for how we're going to handle Miles, we're pretty much just going to composite him together. Don't ask for it like, well, just do him from this movie or just from the comics. Like, there wouldn't really be that much of a difference, to be frank. And even if there was, it's not worth doing a separate video. Sorry for anyone who gets mad about that. But so let's just get into it. So talking about Miles Morales, you can't talk about Miles Morales without talking about the big Mon that would be on. This is probably his partner Mon, let's call it. And that'd be, you can't talk about Spider-Man with electrical powers without putting a Galvantula on the team. Now, you could go a Joltik, but Joltik is... What's the best way to put it? Joltik is not really a spider, first and foremost, and it's not really all that powerful to be set as well. And honestly, the big thing is it's not really a spider, is the thing. So, because of that, I went with Galvantula. It would make sense, especially if you say he started with a Joltik, if we're going by timelines for movies, the second movie, and then in the first movie. And then in the second movie, he now has a Galvantula because he's grown a bit as a hero. So there's that. But speaking of growth and kind of going the opposite way, the next one might surprise you. I went with Toxel. Not Toxtricity, but Toxel. Now, reason for that is because of Toxtricity. Toxtricity, one of my favorite new Mon to come out recently, in the last couple of gens, is this punk rock, of anything, if I did a Spider-Punk team, he would be on the team. But it's a punk rocker kind of musician Pokemon, electrical poison, knows Boom Burst, very powerful attack. So you'd think that, and Miles has a great love of music, and again, the his Venom Shock ability is very powerful, and this would tie into that. So why then is it only a Toxel on the team? Well, this goes a little bit for the first movie, where he's very inexperienced, still learning things. But it goes also to the second movie. And by the way, anything I say will only be a minor spoiler, because I know there's still people who probably haven't seen the movie, but the movie's still doing great in terms of repeat business. And that is that in the second movie, while he's certainly grown, he's only 15. And that shows, because while I love the character, and it's not something against the movie, it's something I noticed in the movie, there are points where he's a bit of a shit. Especially when he's kind of talking back to his parents, and for no reason, especially when I was like, I'm 15, I'm practically an adult. Like, oh, see, I never said that to my parents, because I wasn't stupid enough to think that. And it's like, oh, wow. And they're like, wow. And even my friend, she listened to that scene. She goes, oh, no, you. Just like, yeah, oh. So he still has growing to do as a character. There's a line near the end, and this is a little spoiler, when he's talking to his mom. They mentioned how I beat them all. And about when he was dealing with Spider-Man. I'm like, did you? You didn't actually beat anyone. You just kind of, in terms of beat them in the sense that you kind of outsmarted them so you could run away. That's not beating, that's your ego just a little bit. Because let's be honest, had you had to fight all of them, you would have lost horribly. Because there's no way you're beating T-Rex Spider-Man. At least I don't think so. And honestly, Miguel probably, if he wanted to, could have ripped you apart. But he was more just pissed off and trying to keep you in check. So for that reason, I'm going more with the Toxel. If we were to look at this film by the end of maybe film 3 when that comes out next year, hopefully, then I probably would upgrade this to a Toxtricity. Then there's another big thing we learn in the newest movie, and that is Miles, spoilers, 3, 2, 1, is the original anomaly. Because the spider that bit him didn't come from his dimension. Not only is he not supposed to be Spider-Man in his world, there's a world that's supposed to have a Spider-Man and doesn't have one. So because of that, I'm like, okay, what can I do with that for a team? What can I do for that with a Mon? And I thought of it, I'm like, well, Paradox Mons obviously exist, so let me look at those. None of these really work. If we had a Paradox Galvantula, Ariados, Dewpider, whatever, if we had a Paradox version of a spider Pokemon, it'd be one thing, but we don't. So what else can I use that's at least spider-like? that could work. And I'm like, okay, why don't we don't go with paradox, but more like an anomaly like you would actually have in like space. Like, the paradox mon technically aren't anomalies. They're more, well, I mean, they are, but they're not. But there is another type of mon that is an anomaly in the Pokemon world, and that's Ultra Beasts. They are mon that are from different dimensions that are not supposed to be there. And so, I thought among the Ultra Beasts, Xurkitree was the best one. There really isn't a good spider-like one. Yeah, I could have used the Stakataka, but I'm like, that one doesn't really work well. Yeah, like you have Pheromosa and Buzzwole, but I'm like, no, neither of those are very good. Guzzlord doesn't work very well. But Xurkitree at least has a somewhat spidery appearance to it. Like, it has it look, you can see like 5 different limbs. It could theoretically have more if it wanted to. It is an electric type, so it fits again with the Venom Shock idea. It's also pretty powerful, as Miles is still very strong. He's just, I think that ego needs to be put in check just a little bit. And so, yeah, I thought Xurkitree worked here. But then we have the last two. Now, he has another ability as well where it's camouflage. He essentially is bending light like the Predator and becoming invisible. In fact, he's actually becoming more invisible than the Predator is almost. Now, looking into that, I'm like, there actually aren't a lot of Pokemon that do that, be it their ability or their lore. Like, Mew can turn invisible, Latios and Latias can turn invisible, and of course, Kecleon can turn invisible. The problem is, I can't think of any other mon that really does it. I couldn't think of another mon that does that. B, of the mon that do that, there's no way a Mew's going on the team. There's just no other connection to it. And there's no reason to put Latios or Latias on there. The most you could argue for that is his relationship to maybe Peter Parker, but that's it. So Kecleon being kind of just a minor Pokemon, but with the ability to turn invisible, minus the red stripe, which always stays visible. I think that works. I think Kecleon is fine. Then, honestly, we'll move to the last one I put on real quick, because this was an odd one. I knew that I felt like because he was still starting out as Spider-Man, I kind of wanted a starter mon on the team, a starter Pokemon. This was the last one I used to fill out because the rest of it I more or less have figured out, and this was just like the last one to put on. So I'm like, okay, I want something that is not fully evolved yet, because he's not fully evolved yet. You get what I say? As a person, he still needs to grow. And especially as a Spider-Man, he still needs to grow. But I want something that's not... So I need a middle stage starter is what I was trying to get at with this. And I'm going through all the stars like, no, Grovile's kind of alright, but nah. And ultimately I ended on Frogadier. Frogadier, I think, works the best. It is the most Spider-Man-like in terms of physical design. It's very athletic. I believe it can learn acrobatic, which the last mon on the team also was one of the big reasons I put that on the team, because it could learn acrobatic. And it's one of the reasons I put... one of the types of mon I put on Peter Parker's team as well. But beyond that, I mean, like, Grovyle is okay in terms of design for, say, Miles Morales. Monferno, kind of, but not really. And then beyond that, you got Frogadier, which is the one I chose. Nothing in Alola really matches up to that. Nothing really in Kalos matches up to that. And nothing really in Paldea matches up to that. So honestly, Frogadier's on here just because it's kind of the closest to Spider-Man-esque physicality for a starter Pokemon. This one, if I were to change anything, would be the one I would change. The last mon I have on the team is Palafin. Now, why Palafin? Well, A, as I mentioned, the acrobatic, but B, also the superhero aspect. He's a superhero, and Miles Morales is a superhero. And just in Spider-Man, particularly, is a superhero where he has to go change into his costume and and when he comes back, there he is fighting crime. He's stronger. So Palafin, I think, is a perfectly adequate Pokemon to have on the team for that reason. Plus, again, learning acrobatics is a big thing. So, as always, the question is, how balanced is this team? The short answer is not very balanced at all. There are 3 electric types, 2 water types. And, I mean, so, okay. What are the big weaknesses of this team? Well, ground is immediate. Half the team is straight up weak to ground. One of them has a ×4 weakness to ground. Plus, the steel types are resistant to poisons, or well, they're immune to poison, but they're resistant to electricity. So even though they're strong against Toxel, they're resistant to Galvantula and Xurkitree as well. Beyond that, though, the only other big weaknesses on this team are electric to a degree, because a third of the team is weak. But grass is also a problem, because grass, if I know, is resistant to electricity. I gotta remember real quick if they're strong against electricity. If they're strong against electric types. I think they are strong against them, because if they are strong, then grass mows through a giant. Okay, all right, damage taken. Okay, like they are resistant to electric attacks, but they are neutral when it comes to electric. Okay, so that's all well and good. There's no real big issue there. In terms of electric, I mean, this team, like I said, will struggle against steel types because water's not strong against steel. They're also not. I mean, ground is the only real weakness of electric, so that is the one big benefit here. The bug type is weak to fire, but you got 2 water types on there, and there's only 1 bug type. Normal is immune to ghost, which is good, but doesn't have any strengths either, and it's weak to fighting, which is a problem. And then last but not least, you have water, which, like I said, water is weak to electric, which is a problem. It's also weak to grass, which is a problem. And it's, actually, those are the 2 ones that water is actually, I've always assumed water was weak to flying, but I was wrong on that in the past. So, yeah, the team's not horribly unmutilated or unbalanced. It's just, it's got a couple real big weaknesses to it. Ground, electric, and grass are your big 3 weaknesses on this team. Now, luckily, the ground can be countered by the water types, but they have to be swapped in. And if you're going up against, say, ground and, I don't know, grass type, well, now you're going to have a problem, unless you know an ice type move. Or a flying type move, for that matter. Which, to be fair, Palafin knows acrobatics, and it's the biggest hitter on this team. Actually, that's not true. Xurkitree. You know, I think Palafin, once transformed, does have bigger stats than Xurkitree. Xurkitree has, like, basic legendary stats, like 600 some odd, or high 500s. But either way, that is the team I have here. Let me know what you think of it. Honestly, this is one of those teams where I'm very much up for a different interpretation. I'd be willing to hear it. But this is what I got. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and I'll see you folks next time.